Hello everyone, and welcome back to Simply Mastering. Today we have some black metal by a band named Demise of Civilization, and the album is called The Repent of the Sentient Being. It's actually one single 43-minute track, and today we have a short segment of that. I actually have two segments from the album, and the second one is going to be made into a second video later after this one. So let's go ahead and get into this. Now the way I have this set up, I am only using the VUMT meter here today. And I've got the calibration at -7, and the VU rise and fall are just above 800. If you wanted to set these to 800, that would be fine. I just didn't bother being too exact. I have 815. And over here, I've got the basic chain of plugins with the exception of the decam, which I'm not going to be using today. I am going to be using two equalizers though. I'll just show you guys a little bit of a different approach to equalization. We'll be doing it in two stages, one at the beginning of the chain and one towards the end of the chain. I've gone in and set this up so that I've got about a half second of silence here before the track begins. And at the end, I've gone ahead and just set my end marker here at the end of the track and set my loop region there as well. So we've got our render region pretty much set for when we're done. All right, now, as I always say, I'm going to recommend that you play through this thing at least once, twice, 3 times if you have to, just to get a feel for what the mix is doing, how it sounds. And remember, pay attention to things like EQ balance and compression. We want to make sure that this equalization curve is balanced and that there isn't an overabundance of compression. We also want to make sure that we have enough. And this is a metal track, so we're probably going to forego some dynamics in favor of a louder master with this. And you just go about it the same way. You just push it a little harder, which is why I have the calibration at -7 over here. All right, I'm going to play through the track a couple of times. Actually, I'm going to skip ahead and play through a couple different sections. I'm trying to squeeze this into a half an hour, so let's go ahead and preview this, and it would be a good time for you to pause the video and just go ahead and check this out and join up with me in a few minutes. All right, now in terms of frequency balance and EQ, I think it's pretty good. We need to open up the top end a little bit. I think it's overly, I don't want to say warm because warmth is usually a good thing, but it's definitely not bright enough. So we need to open up the top end and maybe give a little bit more, I don't know, punch to the lowest, sub frequencies down there, and maybe take a little bit of the muddier frequency around 120, 150, maybe take a little bit of that out. So we'll address that when we get to the EQ. For now, let's go ahead and pump up the volume. And I'll just go ahead and move this a little bit so I can see them both. This is the default state of limiter 6. From here, what I want to do is turn this all the way up to the ISP precise setting. Make sure that my ceiling is at -0.2 here. Leave this at 0. And we'll begin to add in some compression at a ratio of 1.3 to 1, and you can actually type this in here. You could use 1.4, 1.5 as well. Heck, let's use 1.4. And, we'll usually want a slower attack and maybe a release time of somewhere around 0.3 here. So let's go ahead and start with this, and then we'll push the volume up until we get this needle floating around here, maybe between -1 and 0. One of the things that I have not touched on yet in any of these videos so far is the clipper, first of all. Actually, two things. And this high frequency limiter over here, which is more or less a mastering de-esser, overall de-esser. So what I want to do is turn these both on because I'm going to use them here. And I think we can get a better result at this level by mixing the clipper with this peak limiter. So what I'll do is turn this down a little bit and introduce some clipping here. And we'll get the same level, but we'll get a better result. So let's go ahead and dial that in.
Yeah.
Okay, now that we have that, let's go ahead and introduce a little bit of our de-essing here. Now, the secret to using this thing is to barely do it, to barely use it. And what I mean by barely is this needle should just be flickering. And what we're doing is we're taking off the more or less harsher high end, and we'll end up putting it back in with the EQ. But it's definitely a nice way of balancing it out, in much the same way that I added some clipping here and offset it with the peak limiter. We're going to do the same thing with the de-esser and the high frequency bands of the equalizer. So let's dial that in. That's just about all we need right there. I'm going to go ahead and tack that open. Move this over to the side. And the next thing we'll do is we'll get to our compression stage. But what I want to do before I set this is point out the fact that I have ochre in here. Now, ochre's purpose is simply to color the EQ in a pleasant way. And what this will do is this will give us a little bit of a warmer sound, because I know I'm going to be hiking up the highs with this equalizer here. So what ochre is going to do is just color this EQ. It's going to give it a little bit more three-dimensional space and a little bit of a deeper tone. And the only thing I've got activated here is the preamp. The important thing to know and understand about ochre is that it's an Aqua plugin based on Acoustica's Nebula technology. And what that means is that we can't overdrive the plugin. So you'll notice as you load it up, the default here, input trim, is all the way down at -18. And they do this so that you don't overload the program. So what we want to do is make sure that the input level is putting the needle right around this area here below the 0, just below or at the 0 on this input meter here. This one is the output, which we're not going to worry about too much because we're not actually going to be doing any equalization with this unit. I'm only using it for the preamp. So I'll just turn it on, but I'm going to leave this down at 18 for now because I want to adjust this with the equalizer. So the next thing to do is, and I love doing this is just a little bit of compression just to squeeze the top down and smush it together just a little bit without causing an audible compression effect. It's more or less just going to warm the track up a little bit by leveling it out very subtly, very subtle amount. We're going for about 1 dB of compression here so that we have a difference of 1 decibel volume when I bypass. Okay, this is the same procedure I've done in all the other videos, so let's go ahead and take care of that. Very subtle effect right there. Maybe somewhere between 10 and 11 I think would be fine. So that's it. Very, very subtle. And make sure that this is on slow, but it does give you a volume change when you bypass the plugin. And that lets you know it's working. It's doing something, but notice that the needle's not moving. It's not enough to actually cause a compression effect, or what we would normally consider to be a pumping or otherwise compressed effect, because metal is going to be generally flat in the end. We're not going to have too much dynamic range, and we'll push it up, and we've got it pretty loud over here already. Now, about that EQ, let's go ahead and get into this. First thing I'm going to do is change the precision over here to insane, turn off EQ gain, and I'll open up the display so you can see what I'm doing. Remember I said I wanted to sculpt the bottom end a little bit by lifting the lows and maybe carving out something around this area. And then we want an overall lift in the highs to open the track up. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on here. Got the highs opened up pretty well. You'll notice that I took a little bit of 3K out because I think those guitars get pretty harsh in there, and the vocals unfortunately have to suffer from that a little bit, but I didn't. Maybe we'll pull it down. Something like this. Not too much, just enough to take the edge off those guitars there at 3K. Okay, let's go ahead and work on the bottom. Alright, I want to talk about ochre here for a moment. The EQ is pretty well balanced right there, I think. And the next step, of course, is to get the preamp saturated correctly. And the way to do that is to, once we've got this set, play the track and get this needle up here at 0. All right, and then we double check our compression. All right, quite satisfactory. Now, the next part of this is the second equalizer. And I'm doing this a little bit differently today because I want to be able to show you how to separate this. What we're going to do is use the first one for the main bulk of the EQ work, and the second one we'll use for some stereo imaging. So let's put this up here like the other one is, and display here so you can see what's going on. I'll move the meter up here because it's in the way. Okay, I'll go back to about this spot, and we'll start to dial in some stereo imaging down here, some width, using these controls down here. And I might adjust the crossover point wherever that is, if depending on the way it sounds. But the only way to figure that out is to go through it. So let's go. Okay, the EQ sounds good. I think we can get a little bit more level out of this thing and call it done. This part right here seems to be one of the loudest sections, so I'm going to concentrate on this here and just get that to sit right there on that border. right, everything sounds good. Now, again, as with any of these videos, you can by all means feel free to improve on this. Of course, this is just a way to get you started. This will get you a pretty good result. I mean, you could probably use this as a final and be perfectly happy with it. It's pretty solid right here where it is. So let me go into some Studio One specific things here before I close this out. When we go to render this, we want to make sure that we've got, under audio here, use dithering for playback and audio file export. Go ahead and apply that. Say OK. Now for wave export, this -2/10 ceiling is fine. If you want to render an MP3, I recommend going down to a full decibel. -1 dB for MP3 or any compressed format like that, so that you don't clip when you render. Okay, and wave is -2/10. So at this setting, don't render an MP3. What we'll do is we'll come up here and we'll render, this is the name of your track, and you choose your resolution, your bit depth. This is already 1644, so we don't really need to change it. Between song start and end marker, that's here. Just say OK, and it'll render your file out. If you wanted to render that MP3, remember, change this to -1, and then you select your MP3 from here. This is lower quality. This is considered CD standard quality, but I'd say that's the lowest I go. If you render 64, it's going to sound like garbage. So the higher resolutions here, 320, just use 320 and you'll always have a great sounding thing. Pretty hard to tell the difference between this and a wave file, but your resolution would remain the same. You don't want to go ahead and change that. And then you just say OK and you render your files out, okay? All right, if you guys have any questions or any comments, concerns, or just want to say hi, go ahead and drop me a line on my website or leave a comment below here. All of the links you need are in the description. And I hope you join me again next time for the next episode of Simply Mastering. We'll have the second part of this album in the next video as well. So until then, I'm just going to sign off. So happy mastering.